They say you don't really see the red flags at first. You just see fireworks, and you call it love. That was me. When he looked at me, it felt like the whole world stopped. When he smiled, it felt like safety, like maybe I could finally breathe again. And when he said the words, "No one else would ever want you," I thought that would be the moment that broke me. But I was wrong. Because that sentence, those 6 cruel little words, didn't destroy me. They lit the match that rebuilt my entire life. My name is Emily, I am 27 years old. If you've ever been underestimated, controlled, or made to feel small, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because this is one of those stories where the storm finally clears, and what's left standing is stronger than ever. When I met Adam, he was magnetic. The kind of person who didn't just walk into a room. He shifted the air in it. His laugh carried, his words lingered. And when his eyes landed on you, it felt like being chosen. Like for that brief moment, nothing and no one else existed. You know how some people can make you feel like you've been seen for the very first time? That's what it was like. Dangerous charm, wrapped in warmth and confidence. The kind of attention that makes you forget to breathe. And forget to question why it feels so intoxicating. At that point in my life, I was vulnerable. I had just crawled out of a relationship that left me feeling like an echo of myself. Not completely broken, but bruised in places no one could see. The kind of hurt that makes you crave gentleness. So when Adam appeared with that easy smile, that steady voice, and that uncanny ability to make me laugh even when I didn't want to, I didn't stand a chance. From the beginning, he said all the right things. He sent good morning texts before I was even awake, and good night calls that stretched past midnight. He remembered little details I'd mentioned only once. My favorite coffee order, the name of my childhood dog, the song that always made me cry. He'd say things like, "You're not like other girls. You actually get me." And I'd blush, thinking I was special, thinking he saw something in me no one else did. Back then, those words felt like a gift. I didn't realize they were the first string he was pulling. A subtle thread of control disguised as flattery. Because that's how it starts, isn't it? Not with yelling or cruelty, but with affection so intense it blinds you. With kindness that feels like love, and attention that feels like safety. I told myself I was lucky, that I'd finally found someone who cared deeply, someone who wanted to know everything about me. I didn't understand yet that there's a difference between being loved and being consumed. But in those first few weeks, it didn't matter. All I knew was that after months of feeling invisible, Adam made me feel alive again, like sunlight after a storm. And maybe that's what made it so dangerous. Because I didn't see the red flags. I only saw fireworks. And I called it passion. The cracks started small, quiet, almost unnoticeable. The kind of cracks you only recognize long after everything's fallen apart. At first, it was just jokes. Tiny, harmless-sounding remarks that made me laugh out of habit. "Oh, you're wearing that?" He'd chuckle, eyes scanning me up and down. "It's cute, in a quirky way." Or he'd smile and say, "You really don't need dessert, babe. You know how your body holds weight." He'd say it lightly, like it was teasing. And I'd laugh too, even when my chest tightened. Because what else do? You don't want to seem sensitive. You don't want to ruin the moment. So you swallow it. You call it love language. You tell yourself he's just joking. But over time, those jokes started changing shape. The humor drained out of them. And what was left were tiny cuts. small enough to dismiss, sharp enough to sting. It didn't stop there. He began to ask questions that sounded more like accusations. Why does your coworker text you that late? Your friend Emma seems jealous of us. Maybe you should stop hanging out with her. He said it like he was protecting me, like he knew better who I should trust. And part of me believed it. Part of me wanted to believe that his jealousy meant I was special. I didn't realize what was really happening. I didn't see that every time I changed a habit to please him, I was shrinking, bit by bit, into someone smaller, quieter, easier to manage. Soon, he was picking me up from work every day. At first, I thought it was sweet, thoughtful even, until he started scrolling through my phone during the drive. He'd hold it up casually, read my messages, and ask, "Who's this?" Like it was the most normal thing in the world. And if I said it made me uncomfortable, he'd sigh, that disappointed, heavy sigh, and say, "Wow, you really don't trust me, do you? After everything I do for you." I began to question myself more than I questioned him. Was I overreacting? Was I being too sensitive again? That's how he wanted it. Because control doesn't always come from shouting. Sometimes it comes from quiet correction. From the look that makes you second-guess your every move. Soon, he was commenting on everything. The way I drove. The way I ordered coffee. The way I talked too loudly or too softly. The way I didn't understand his jokes. And every time I tried to defend myself, he'd switch. Like flipping a light. One moment sharp and cold. The next, warm and apologetic. He'd bring flowers. He'd cook dinner. He'd hold me close and whisper, "You know I only say these things because I care, right? I just want what's best for you." And I believed him. Because it's hard not to believe someone when they look at you like you're their world. Right before they make you feel like you're the problem. That's how it worked with Adam. Love, then storm. Apology, then silence. Over and over again. Until I forgot what peace was supposed to feel like. The night it happened wasn't special. There wasn't a big argument or some dramatic betrayal. It was just a Tuesday. One of those long, exhausting days where all I wanted was peace. A quiet dinner, a shower, maybe a movie, something normal. But with Adam, normal didn't exist. We were sitting in his car outside my apartment. The air was thick, that kind of heavy silence that comes before a storm. He'd been scrolling through my phone earlier that day. And he'd found a comment from an old college friend under one of my Instagram posts. Just 2 words. Looking great. To me, it was harmless. To him, it was proof. Proof that I was untrustworthy. "Why is he still commenting on your pictures?" he asked, his tone sharp. Like he'd caught me in some terrible lie. I remember blinking at him. Confused, tired. Trying to keep my voice even. "Because we're friends," I said. "He's married, Adam." He scoffed, shaking his head with that cruel half-smile. "Yeah, and you're naive if you think that means anything." I tried to reason with him. Tried to calm the storm before it spun out of control. But the more I spoke, the quieter I got. Because I saw it, that smirk, that glint in his eyes. Like he was enjoying this. Like watching me defend myself made him feel powerful. And then, out of nowhere, he said it. The words that still echo in my memory like a whisper I can't forget. "No one else would ever want you. You know that, right?" He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He said it quietly, calm, matter of fact. As if it were some undeniable truth of the universe. And somehow, that made it worse. I remember everything about that moment. The streetlight outside flickering through the rain-streaked window. The rhythmic hum of water tapping against the windshield. The smell of his cologne, sharp and suffocating. And the way my stomach dropped so suddenly. It felt like falling from somewhere high and hitting the ground all at once. He kept talking. His voice a low, endless stream of poison. You're too emotional. Too stubborn. Too much drama. You should be grateful I put up with it. Each word landed like a stone. Heavy. Final. I just sat there, staring out the window. The lights blurred by the rain looked almost beautiful. And for a second, I wondered how something could look so peaceful. While I felt like I was breaking. Normally, I would have cried. I would have apologized. Begged him to stop being angry. Tried to fix whatever imaginary thing I'd done wrong. That's what I always did. But that night, something shifted. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the way his voice dripped with certainty. Like he truly believed I was worthless without him. Or maybe it was because, deep down, some small part of me finally stopped believing him. Instead of crying, I smiled. Just a small, quiet smile. He didn't notice. He was too busy talking. Too busy convincing himself of how powerful he was. But inside, I felt something stir. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. Because in that moment, I saw it for what it was. Every insult. Every manipulation. Every apology that wasn't really an apology. It wasn't love. It was control. And control only works if you give it power. So I sat there, hands folded in my lap, listening to him tear me down. And I made a quiet promise to myself. He would never get that power again. Not tomorrow. Not ever. I didn't argue. I didn't fight back. I just let him talk. Because I knew something he didn't. That this conversation, this moment, was the beginning of the end. And as he ranted beside me, I stared out into the night, past the rain, past the street lights, and imagined a version of myself that wasn't afraid of him anymore. That was the first time in a long time I felt free. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The air was cold, still, heavy with that strange silence that follows a storm. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel dread. Just clarity. I knew what I had to do. Not something impulsive, not a grand, dramatic exit. Just careful, quiet steps toward freedom. I didn't argue with him anymore. Didn't defend myself when he tried to provoke me. Didn't cry when he pushed my buttons just to watch me fall apart. Instead, I learned how to go still. How to blend silence into strength. Every word he said, I let wash over me like background noise. He thought I was finally becoming obedient, calmer, better. He didn't realize I was just becoming invisible. Untouchable. That's how it started. Tiny acts of defiance wrapped in normalcy. I began saving money, quietly, carefully. A few dollars at a time, tucked into the back of an old book. He'd never bother to open. I started moving little things out of the apartment. A sweater here, a photo frame there. Telling him I was just decluttering. He never noticed. Because men like Adam never think you'll leave. They build their control on the belief that you won't dare. I reached out to people I hadn't spoken to in months. Friends he'd pushed away. Family I'd grown distant from. Each conversation was like taking a breath after being underwater too long. They didn't judge. They just said, "We've missed you." And somehow, that was enough to remind me that I still had a world outside of him. At work, I went to my manager, quietly, privately. I told her I needed a transfer. Somewhere far. Somewhere he couldn't just drop by to check on me. She didn't ask many questions. She just nodded, her eyes soft, like she already knew what I couldn't yet say out loud. And then came the night. The night I decided enough was enough. It was a Friday, rainy, dark. The kind of weather that always seemed to follow us around. He'd gone out with his friends. Texted me that he'd be late. Normally, that would have made me anxious. That night, it felt like mercy. I packed quietly. Every movement deliberate. Folding clothes I actually liked. Tucking away photos that reminded me of who I used to be. A few keepsakes. Nothing more. Just me. A suitcase. And a kind of quiet determination I hadn't felt in years. Before I left, I stood in the doorway for a long time. The apartment looked smaller somehow. All the things that once felt safe now looked like props in a play I'd outgrown. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a cage I'd finally learned how to unlock. I wrote him a note. 3 simple lines. No anger, no blame, no goodbye. You were right about one thing. No one else would want me, like you did. And that's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I left it on the kitchen counter, right beside his half-empty glass of whiskey. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I turned off my phone, took one last deep breath, and walked out. The rain hit my face as soon as I stepped outside. Cold, sharp, honest. For the first time in so long, I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't afraid of anything. Behind me was everything he'd used to break me. In front of me, the unknown. But it was mine. And as the music swelled inside my chest, the rhythm of my own heartbeat steady and sure, I finally felt what freedom really sounds like. The first few days were brutal. There's no other word for it. I thought freedom would feel like flying, like sunlight and open skies. But it didn't. It felt like falling, like my body had forgotten how to exist, without tension in every muscle. For so long, I'd been on edge, waiting for the next criticism, the next fight, the next quiet punishment disguised as love. And when all of that was gone, the silence was deafening. He called, and called, and called. My phone lit up like a warning sign. His name flashing again and again. Texts. Voicemails. Hundreds of them. At first, it was rage. You'll regret this. You're nothing without me. Then came the desperation. Please just talk to me. I can't live without you. I'll change, I promise. And when I didn't answer, the mask slipped again. You're pathetic. You'll come crawling back. No one else will want you. But I stayed silent. Every ignored call was a boundary rebuilt. Every message unanswered was a piece of power returning to me. By the end of that week, I'd moved into a tiny apartment across town. It wasn't much. The paint was chipped. The lights flickered every few minutes. And the heater made this strange rattling sound, like it was sighing with me. But it was mine. No footsteps pacing behind me. No voice picking me apart. No phone being snatched out of my hands. Just quiet. Real, solid quiet. And at first, that quiet was terrifying. Because when you've been controlled for so long, freedom doesn't feel safe. It feels foreign. You don't know what to do with all that space. But slowly, gently, it started to feel like home. I went back to therapy. The first session, I cried the entire hour, without saying a single word. The second one, I said I left. And my therapist just smiled. Like that one sentence was a miracle. I started jogging in the mornings again. The cold air hurt my lungs at first, but I kept going. Each breath a reminder that I was alive, and no one was watching me, judging me, owning me. I cut my hair. Not just a trim, a real cut. Short, wild, free. He'd always told me not to. Said he liked it long. Said it made me feminine. But when I saw my reflection afterward, I finally saw me. Every small change felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that I'd once handed over without even realizing it. I learned to laugh again, to cook meals I actually liked. Spicy, messy, full of flavor. To leave the dishes in the sink sometimes, because no one was there to criticize it. I danced barefoot in the kitchen. Music turned up too loud. Hair still damp from a shower. No one rolling their eyes. No one sighing. Just me. Clumsy, free, and more alive than I'd been in years. There were nights I still cried. Healing isn't linear. There were days when I doubted myself. When I almost reached for my phone. When the loneliness hit harder than I expected. But each time, I reminded myself, I didn't escape to be comfortable. I escaped to be whole. And in those quiet moments, sitting on my old second-hand couch, with a cup of tea and soft music humming in the background, I realized something simple, but powerful. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just arrives quietly one day, and you realize it's been there for a while. A few months later, I saw him again. It wasn't planned. Just one of those moments life throws at you, when it knows you're finally strong enough to handle it. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that feels lazy and light. Soft sunlight through grocery store windows. A cart full of small, happy things. Fresh flowers. Coffee beans. A pint of ice cream I didn't have to share. I was standing in line at the checkout, when I heard a voice behind me. That voice. Hey. It was strange, how familiar and foreign it sounded all at once. I turned, and there he was. Adam. It felt surreal. Like seeing a ghost from a story I'd already finished reading. He looked the same, but not really. There was something smaller about him now. Not in height or size, but in presence. That magnetic arrogance he used to wear like a crown was gone. He smiled, that old practiced smirk. The one that used to make me forget my own name. But now, it didn't land the same way. It just looked empty. Wow, he said, his eyes scanning me up and down. You look different. And he was right. I was different. Not because of the haircut or the new clothes, or the quiet confidence I wore like armor, but because I finally recognized my own reflection. I smiled, calm and easy. I feel different. He nodded, his gaze flickering, like he couldn't quite find his footing anymore. That smirk faltered for half a second. He tried to recover. So, he said, casual, rehearsed. You seeing anyone these days? For a moment, I almost laughed. The old me would have tried to soften the moment, to make him feel comfortable, to avoid making things awkward. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. So I smiled, genuine this time, and said, yeah, myself. He blinked, confused, like the sentence didn't compute. He frowned, searching for something clever to say, something cutting, something that would put him back in control. But the words never came. For the first time, he had nothing. He just stood there, that once powerful presence shrinking, under the weight of a truth he couldn't manipulate. Then he looked away, turned, and walked off. No shouting, no grand confrontation, no apology that would have meant nothing anyway. Just silence. The kind of silence that said everything. Because in that quiet, he finally realized what I had known for months. He didn't have power over me anymore. He couldn't twist my words, couldn't pull my strings, couldn't make me question my worth. He had to face the version of me that didn't need his approval to exist. And that was my revenge. Not the note I left. Not walking away in the rain. Not even the months of rebuilding myself piece by piece. My revenge was simple. I became everything he told me I couldn't be. Calm. Happy. Whole. Every laugh, every quiet night in peace. Every small joy I allowed myself to feel. It was a reminder that I won. Not because he lost me, but because I finally found me. You know, sometimes revenge doesn't look like fireworks. It doesn't come with shouting, or justice served in some grand dramatic way. Sometimes, it's quiet, peaceful, like taking a deep breath after years of drowning, like waking up one morning, and realizing the weight you've been carrying is finally gone. For so long, I thought revenge had to mean getting even, proving him wrong, showing him what he lost. But it wasn't that at all. It was learning that I didn't need his validation, or anyone's, to feel worthy. He once told me, "No one else would ever want you." And for a while, I believed him. Those words lived in my head like a curse, echoing through every doubt, every mirror, every quiet night when I felt alone. But the funny thing about words like that, they only have power as long as you give it to them. And the moment I stopped letting his voice define mine, I finally heard something else. My own voice. Calm. Certain. Free. The moment I stopped needing someone to want me, I started wanting myself. That was the real turning point. Not leaving him. Not ignoring his calls. But choosing me. Choosing peace over chaos. Choosing healing over history. Choosing self-worth over the illusion of love. And that's the part he'll never understand. Because love, real love, doesn't shrink you. It doesn't make you afraid to speak, or walk on eggshells, or question your own reflection. Real love makes you stronger. It makes you more you. So yeah, maybe he was right, in his own twisted way. No one else would ever want me the way he did. And thank God for that. Because now, I finally know what it feels like to be wanted by the one person who matters most. Me. If this story gave you chills, or maybe just that quiet sense of peace that comes when you finally let something go, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories of strength, healing, and the kind of redemption that comes from within. And tell me in the comments, what was your moment? The one where you finally walked away, closed the door, and felt yourself breathe again. Because I think we all have that one memory. That breaking point that turned into a beginning. And sometimes sharing it helps someone else find their way out too. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't anger, or payback, or even proving them wrong. It's becoming the person they tried so hard to break, and realizing you were unbreakable all along.